TFE, and welcome back to the channel that puts stupidity in barrels of hydrofluoric acid. Flat earthers come and go. Some fade into obscurity, some see sense and realise the earth isn't flat. Please go and subscribe to Seek Truth, Speak Truth. But some never cease to pump out the stupid. And no flat earther pumps out more constant stupid than Sleeping Warrior. He is so stupid that he once said the earth would have a solar eclipse every month.
A solar eclipse will happen every single month. And why? Because it takes 27 days, 27 point something days for the moon to orbit the earth. So at some point it's going to cross the sun. And it does it every single month. Now, I have no explanation for why it takes every 100 years for America to get one, because the law of probability dictates that it should be every few years, but we're being told it's once every 100 years. So there is a solar eclipse every month. The only problem is we don't see it because it's usually over the water. So you can bet me £1,000 because you're gonna have to come up with the reason for why it's not when the moon orbits the Earth once every month, you Burke. I bet you £1,000 solar eclipses happen every single month. The issue is we never see them because they're normally over the earth, normally over the water.
After failing to pay up for that bet, he promptly deleted his channel and started a new one. He is so stupid he was officially voted the dumbest fuck of 2019, beating out even JM Truth. So let's take a look at the stupid person as he tries to debunk a physics teacher. Sleeping Warrior is back for Flirfs Are Idiots, episode 45.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Thank you for joining me once again to look at the people whose breakfast of choice is the purple crayons. Sleeping Warrior is, how do I put this delicately, not one of the brightest people around. He clearly has issues with the most basic of things, like basic maths.
5 divided by 0 is 5. In the real world.
Basic physics.
This is an egg.
And basic toilet habits after becoming the first man to ever stream twice at the same time.
They started to get irritated. So that.
The thing is, the thing is though, the cop doesn't have to show you the code. He just brings it before the judge. The judge has to show you the code.
So it blows my mind when someone of Sleeping Warrior's limited mental capacity thinks he knows more than the people that have actually studied physics. Like Conspiracy Cats, an actual physics teacher who did a video explaining gravity and the nuances of Newtonian gravity versus Einsteinian gravity. Along comes Leaky Warrior to correct him.
Newton's equation tried to describe to us what we see, whereas Einstein's work was more about why we see it.
It isn't.
They're not mutually exclusive, as many flat earthers would have you believe. Anyway, next topic.
No. Conspiracy Cats is both wrong on both points.
Conspiracy Cats is both wrong on both points? Just saying that if I'd fluffed my first line in a video, I'd have probably restarted the recording. But more importantly, what gives you the authority to say he is wrong? You don't understand physics, you haven't ever studied physics, and try to use dictionary definition of words to argue scientific points. To put it nicely, Sleeping Warrior, you're a fucking idiot.
Newtonian gravitation, as we all know if you've been in this topic for more than 2 minutes, you know that Newtonian gravitation was a force. Einsteinian gravity is an effect. They are not the same thing.
They are the same thing. They describe the same thing and mathematically break down to the exact same equation. And by that I mean you can literally derive Newton's law of gravitational attraction from Einstein's field equations. And maths is how you describe things in science. It's the language of science and how we prove our ideas. Newton's law was a mathematical description of what Newton observed. Einstein's general relativity was a description of why that attraction is there. It's also a lot more accurate than Newton's work. Newton's law is great for a local scale, but Einstein's field equations are much better for larger scale calculations. But that doesn't mean Newton was wrong. It's like saying pi isn't 3.1416 because pi is 3.1415965. It's more accurate, but they are both still the ratio of a circumference to a diameter of a circle.
Newton was not describing what we see. Newton was describing a physicality.
Come on now, Leaky, what does that even mean? Newton did describe what he saw. He realised that there must be some kind of force acting on an object falling, otherwise they would not start moving from rest. He called this apparent force gravity. He also realised the moon would fly off in a straight line tangent to its orbit if there wasn't some kind of force making it fall towards Earth, and that the observation of Kepler could be explained by this apparent force. And that's what Newton's law of gravitational attraction is, a mathematical description of observations that was able to make predictions and explain many natural phenomena.
Something that was pushing or pulling. Even though Newton said, "Do not ascribe gravitation to me" in his letters to Bentley, it is clear that Newtonian gravitation is a force misrepresented by ballers to believe the fiction that is known as gravity.
How can we misrepresent an observable physical phenomena? For all we need to know, there is a force. Things have mass. They accelerate towards other masses. Therefore, they have a force. F equals ma. Newton's second law of motion. You are right that Newton said not to attribute any kind of theory about gravity to him, because even he realised that his maths presented some problems, and seemed to suggest that gravity reached out as if by magic instantaneously across vast distances. That's why he never suggested a mechanism for what he observed. He just described it mathematically.
Einsteinian gravity is an observed phenomenon. I did a test recently where I made an egg move. When the egg moved, it's the movement of the egg, as per Einstein's gravitation, that is gravity.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
Einstein would not say any such thing. Einstein said that gravity was the curvature of space-time due to the uneven distribution of masses that causes an apparent attractive force between masses. In your eggs experiment...
This is an egg.
Yeah, we know, Riley, that's an egg. Just calm down. What you did was add some salt to the water. This changed one of the variables in the buoyancy force equation, rho vg, and tried to claim that a parts per million metre measured density.
Okay, that's coming in at 212 parts per million tap water. Don't know what that means. It's just a number. It could be unicorn farts. It's just a number.
Because you, Riley, are a fucking idiot. You're on the wrong channel, mate.
Wrong channel, dude.
Subscribe to Team Skeptic.
It's the effect of the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass. It isn't the why, it's a visualization, a phenomena, an observed phenomena. Step one of the scientific method.
General relativity isn't an observation, you muppet. It's an explanation of the observation. An experimentally demonstrated and verified explanation.
This teacher is lying to people, his subs, his children that he teaches in school, about gravity. Newton was not about what we see. Einstein is about what we see. Einstein is an effect. Newton was a force.
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
It's clear to anyone with half a brain that you haven't a fucking clue what you're talking about. That is literally the opposite of how it is. And as for Conspiracy Cat's lying, no. He's teaching kids what they need to know for high school physics. To have a basic understanding of the world around them, help them pass their GCSEs and prepare them for A-level and possibly further if they want to continue their study in physics. Now Riley is demanding that I show him my physics degree certificate, which I'm not going to do because I don't have it to hand, I don't have anything to prove to a mentally deficient wannabe lawyer, and I don't have a habit of posting my personal information online to people. He says he doesn't think that I have a degree because I explain gravity as an emergent force, so I'm lying to people. I asked Riley what he thinks happens that after high school, where you're taught Newtonian physics, that you get to college or uni and they tell you that actually that was all just a lie, it's not a force, it's the curvature of space-time. His response was this: you are told it's an effect, not a force. Whether the penny drops or not is another matter. And I don't think they tell you.
Dude, editing.
I think they expect
you know what that is?
Dots.
You're
So
not
you
a
think
flarf,
they
dude.
expect you to just figure out that you were lied to at high school. Why doesn't every person with a degree in physics say something? Because you don't know what you're talking about, and anyone with a degree in physics knows Newton and Einstein described the same thing. and that it's perfectly acceptable to talk about gravity as a force. And my challenge to you, Sleepy Dum Dum, is to find one single person with a degree in physics to publicly disagree with me, and I will admit that I'm wrong and delete this video.
He's wrong. Einstein superseded Newton. Einstein made it about an effect. The egg moving was movement. That's what Einstein calls gravity. He ascribes it to the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass. Again, this teacher is lying to you, and his subs, and his pupils in school.
But he isn't lying. He is doing his job and preparing his students to advance in physics should they wish to. And knowing him, as I do, I expect he is an extremely good teacher. And what we've tried to tell you all the time is that science doesn't supersede. It builds on what's become before. Newton wasn't wrong about what he observed and described, and this is evidenced by the fact that every time a satellite is put into orbit, it's Newton's law that is used to calculate its orbital mechanics. It's Newton's laws that are applied when building load-bearing structures like bridges and skyscrapers. Ask an engineer, they will agree. At the moment, general relativity is the best understanding we have, and Einstein's predictions keep getting proven right, like the discovery of gravitational waves. That doesn't mean in the future we won't have a better understanding that explains things better. And that wouldn't mean that Einstein was wrong.
He knows that gravity is an effect, but he still tells you that Newtonian is acceptable. In 1915, Einstein surpassed, replaced, superseded, debunked, replaced, whatever a word you want.
Well, none of those words are right, so...
It became mutually exclusive in 1915, when he submitted his paper on the theory of general relativity. You don't have to like that, but you will accept it.
No, we won't accept it. And by we, I mean anyone who wasn't a victim of the great brain robbery of '09.
And every time this drongo teacher calls out gravity as a force in any way, I'm going to be there to correct people that this guy's lying.
Why you no speak good, Riley? Make a basic structure of sentence you cannot.
We don't see gravity. We see things move. Helium balloons must be attracted by a force to the sky, according to this mumbo idiot fool.
You've had this explained to you at least 666 times, Riley. I know it won't help, but I think you need to go to the remedial classroom. Again. Right, you bunch of morons, sit down and shut up. What is it, Mr. Riley? You need the toilet? Go on then, quickly, we'll wait till you get back. Mr. Riley, what are you in a bottle? What do you mean that's how you do it at home? I just threw up in my mouth a little. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Wait, are you passing that bottle to Mr. Murphy? No, please don't, Mr. Murphy. No, it's still warm. Why, Mr. Murphy? Why?
Well, I've been drinking urine now for 6 years.
I hate my job. Just take notes, or don't. I really don't care at this point. Helium balloons are attracted to the sky, according to flat earthers. But what they ignore is the buoyancy equation has G in it. This G stands for the acceleration due to gravity. The denser air with more mass gets pulled down with more force than the lighter helium in the balloon. This creates an upward force directly opposite to the local gravitational vector. Buoyancy requires gravity. It's the same with a car with a helium balloon in it. Normally, when a car accelerates forward, you get pushed back into your seat. But a helium balloon would move forward as you accelerate forward, the heavier air is pushed to the back of the car. I really don't care if any of you paid attention or took notes. I think I'm being punished for being a horrible person in a past life. Class dismissed. Yes, I know we only just started, but I hate all of you and need my breakfast. Where did I put the whiskey?
We know there's no force of attraction in clouds. We know there's no force of attraction in stars. But helium balloons do go up. Relative density explains that.
Buoyancy explains clouds. That's why when they get too heavy it rains. But to say there is no attraction in stars is just willful ignorance. It's what causes our orbit. Earth is in constant freefall towards our star, but we have a fast enough tangential velocity that we miss it and keep going around. And relative density? No, Riley. Density isn't a force. It cannot cause an acceleration.
We can calculate it. We can predict it. It has both a vector, it has a direction and a magnitude. It's a vector.
Bollocks, you can calculate it. That's an outright lie. For there to be a vector, there has to be a reason for something to go in a particular direction. And the biggest problem for your claim of density being a force is that density gives no reason to go in a particular way. Yes, a lead ball is more dense than water, but how does the lead ball know which way is down? It doesn't. No matter how much you bleat like the sheep that you are, following around Nathan Oakley and Quantum Eraser, you cannot escape the need for a downward acceleration for things to, actually accelerate towards the ground. Relative density is a bunch of crap.
But they ignore this because it doesn't go with their narrative, their religion, their belief. This guy's lying to people about gravity.
No, Katz isn't lying. Calling people a liar because you don't understand is about as arrogant as you can get. And we don't have beliefs. We have evidence and actual science. Not your batshit crazy version of science.
We know what gravity is because current physics defines it. Einstein defines it. It is defined. We also know what causes it. Einstein defined it with its cause. It all goes back to your definition of current physics. Gravity is the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass.
And you haven't the first clue what that means, do you? The curvature is what causes the apparent attractive force between masses. You are under the idiotic assumption that it stops at warping space-time. Current physics says that warping space-time leads to the Newtonian side that engineers use every day.
I missed off the first two words of the definition, and I'm going to emphasize them now. It's the effect of the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass. So we do know what gravity is, and we do know what causes it. Einstein described it as a visualization, an effect, a perceived phenomena. Yeah.
You can shout the effect as loud as you like. It still doesn't change the fact that you are comically ignorant to any of the physics that you talk about. Your knowledge of physics comes from skimming quotes from articles and textbooks without ever understanding any of the context. Your brain, Riley, is simply too dull to visualize any of the complex concepts required to understand what you quote. I tell you to read a fucking book, but you wouldn't understand, so there's no point.
Neil deGrasse Tyson dropped his microphone. The movement of the microphone in the direction that we attribute known as down is what Einstein says gravity is. It's the movement.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Riley, you're dumb as fuck.
It's not any force that's pulling it towards the ground or a force pushing it towards the ground as per Newton. Einstein's gravity is mutually exclusive. This guy's lying. However, you try getting any baller to explain how the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass is what caused Neil deGrasse Tyson's microphone to drop.
Again, just for you, Riley, in general relativity, the apparent attractive force between masses is an emergent property of the warping of space-time due to the uneven distribution of mass. This is the current understanding we have of gravity. Well, some people understand. Obviously not you.
It just becomes comical. They know it becomes comical and they have to swerve it at all costs.
Hello.
Conspiracy Cats is lying to people on the internet, but he's lying to your children in school too. He did a degree. He knows Einstein is an effect, but he still teaches Newton. He lets all the children come out of school believing gravity was a force because it's in the curriculum.
And like I said, it's in the curriculum because they need to have that understanding if they want to progress in physics.
Yeah, he knows that it's an effect. You've got to ask yourself, Why would a teacher lie to children and justify it on the basis that it's in the curriculum, but deep down inside, he knows that gravity's not a force? The guy's lying. There's no two ways about it, and he's teaching it to your kids. If you think that's acceptable, you're a fucking spastic. It isn't okay to lie to children. I was lied to when I was in school. If somebody told me in school that, well, it's in the curriculum and that's why we teach it to you, but it's not actually a force, it's an effect, everything would have been different in my life.
Lovely language there, Riley, but things would have been different. Really, I can see it now. Nah, this is more Riley's level.
Anthony, if a triangle has the sides 1 and 1, do you know what the angles of the triangle are?
Triangle
Which kind of triangle are you on about? Like a right angle triangle?
The triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. Do you know what the angles are?
The angles would be... Well, it would be an equilateral triangle, wouldn't it?
Right, so what are the angles? Now I'm going to ask this again. If you have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and 1, what are the angles?
I'm gonna pull up a triangle calculator.
Let's do this again. Triangle with sides 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles? Is somebody recording this? Because this is just priceless.
Well, the one I'm using isn't. It's not giving me any when I do it. So either this calculator is wrong or you're wrong.
We have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and what are the angles?
Yeah, so that's an equilateral triangle, right?
Right, so what are the angles?
Does that work on a right angle triangle?
The sides are 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles?
When is that ever used in astronomical calculations for measuring trig? Paul Michel Foucault, the guy we all know for the pendulum effect.
It's the wrong one.
Apparently it shows the rotation of the Earth. What do we know about Foucault? Not that much, really. French, pendulums, that's about it. That's all we know about him. This is the guy. He died in 1988, 1984, aged 57. Does anybody know what he died of? I didn't know what he died of. Presumably old age. There's not that much in it, but for the fact that he was gay, openly gay, he died of HIV, and that's about as much as you can tell. Everything else in here is generally not that, not that interesting. There's not that much in it.
It's locked.
One thing I want to show you is that if you do a Control and F in here and type in pendulum, no mention of the pendulum. Foucault's pendulum is supposed to show the rotation of the Earth. Wouldn't you think that if that was true, it would at least get a mention in his...
You've got no answer for it, that's the problem.
No, I do. The answer's the same on both models, but I'm not getting into it. We're trying to satisfy the definition of atmospheric pressure by satisfying the mass part for weight. If you can't satisfy mass for weight, then you don't satisfy the definition for atmospheric pressure.
Oh, is that the one where he says weight and mass are the same?
And your model does not do what your model claims it does. So where do we...
Okay, Newton's first law. All mass is inertial mass. And inside a gravitational field, all mass is gravitational mass.
That's
all
not...
mass is accelerating downwards at 9.8 meters per second.
No, that's not Newton's first law.
Certainly is Newton's first law.
No, it isn't. Newton's first law of motion is an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by a force, or an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by a force.
Which is quite literally the law of inertia.
That's not the way you worded it. That is not his law. You need to use the words.
The law of... No. That is the law of inertia.
Right. My friend here that's not you talking, and you were asked not to talk because it was supposed to be gently and I, has incorrectly cited Newton's first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion is an object at rest... Can you stop interrupting, please? You were asked to go on mute. An object at rest remains at rest unless acted upon by a force. An object in motion remains in motion unless acted upon by a force. You did not read that, or you did not cite that when you said Newton's law, first law. What did you say about Newton's first law?
Newton's first law is the law of inertia. Now, if you would like to Google what is the law of inertia, I think you'll find it is Newton's first law.
Its first law is not Newton's first law of inertia. It's called Newton's first law of motion, and as I've correctly cited on demand, it is an object in motion will remain in motion, and the same way an object at rest will remain in rest unless acted upon by a force. You have not got your laws of motion correct. Sorry.
And that's all the stupid that I can take for today, but just before I go, I want to give a massive thanks to all my channel members and patrons. I could not continue to do what I do without your support. There is a special section in my Discord for you guys where I will do streams that you can join from. To help support this channel, you can become a member by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button, or become a patron at patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything from FTFE. And remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat, 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 fight the flat,
Hi everyone, what is up? My name is Haley. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you did not know, now you do. Hey you guys, what's up? So in today's video, y'all, I'm going to be talking about how my views on racial identity have changed since living in Germany. This video is most likely going to be very unorganized, just a cluster of a video, but I thought it'd be the perfect time due to the climate that we are in, especially in the United States, to speak about this topic. And when I look back at my videos that I made in the past regarding racism, race, ethnicity, and racial identity, I feel like my views have changed, not drastically, but they have changed since those videos, and I feel like I can go a little bit more in depth and make it a little bit more of a personal video. I feel like in the past I tried to play too much into humor. I'm still going to try to be humorous in this video, but I think I was trying to entertain more than tell a story, and I feel like in this video I'm going to be a little bit more personal, open, and tell a story. I don't want to offend anyone. I'm trying to be politically correct, or as politically correct as I can be in this video. I know when I start talking about race, nationality, ethnicity, and all that good stuff, a lot of negative, dark people come from the YouTube or internet underworld and start attacking me, the people in my comment section, and everything else. So I'm trying my best to just prepare myself mentally for those things. But other than that, I think the best way for me to start the video or to structure the video is to try to start with my upbringing, so past, younger Haley, then talk about moving to Germany, and then just discuss what racial identity means to me now. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up because it helps a lot of people see this video. First way and best way to start this video is to say that I am mixed. I know it's a mic drop, a gasp moment for a lot of people, and I think just to answer a lot of people's questions and give people a very definitive, definite answer, it's best for me to just say everything. So I am mixed, which for me, mixed means a whole bunch of different things. Not in the sense that I am a whole bunch of things, but that mix can essentially be, for a lot of people, different things. But for me, it means that my mother is white Caucasian and my father is black African American. I'm referring and using these descriptive terms from what I've learned whether it be education, environment, society. Some people will disagree when I say white or Caucasian. Some people disagree when I say black or African American. Both my parents consider themselves and refer to themselves as these terms. So a lot of people got upset when I posted a video about 2 years ago, I want to say, regarding my DNA background or whatever it may be. And I posted a picture of my father, and I got seriously hundreds of comments attacking me and my father because everyone said that I was lying, that he was African American. And I get it. I mean, we have this stereotypical image in our head of what African American or black can be, and maybe my father doesn't 1000% fit it, and maybe I was joking around too much in the video saying that, oh, he thinks he's this or that, but he does see himself, as well as his family, for as long and as far as they can see or think or say, have said or identified as African American or black. If you don't like his racial identity, you can very much so send him an email. I'll link it here, or you can send him a letter by dove, habicht, pigeon, crow, who knows. I'm sure he'd love to hear the things that you guys have to say about racial identity or his racial identity. So for me, it meant that I had a darker skinned parent, a lighter skinned parent. I lived in a predominantly white neighborhood in southern conservative Florida. I always have to reiterate and repeat, because still, no matter how many times I will say explicitly, like in every video, I can say I'm only talking about where I grew up. A lot of people will be like, you're only talking about your little city. And I'm like, how many times do I have to say it? So I'm only talking about the town where I grew up in, the places I visited that were similar to my town. I'm not saying the whole United States is like this, but where I lived and where I grew up, which I feel like all of or a lot of my problems stem from, was a predominantly white neighborhood. I feel really cringy saying that my neighborhood was predominantly white. Not even my neighborhood, my city was predominantly white, my county was predominantly white. It shouldn't be that I have to say that, but for this video, for the purpose of this video, I think it is very important. My school, which, you know, was a direct reflection of that, I actually brought, you know, my yearbook, and I went through because I wanted to make sure that I was telling the truth. And if you don't believe it's my yearbook, there's Mini Haley. All the people in the book probably didn't want to be in this video, but that is fine. Sorry, you guys, recht am eigenen Bild. I think there were 100 to 150 students in my class, and out of the 100 to 150 kids, there were around 6-ish mixed people. So for me, growing up, and especially in my town, my identity was the minority. It was a very clear division between white and black and Hispanic. Hispanic was also in there, and that was a very big chunk. But you know, mixed people that had one white parent and one brown parent, in that sense, I mean, like I said, mixed can mean so many different things, was not common. So for me, multicultural life, multicultural living was normal. I had family members that did not speak English, that only spoke Spanish. My great grandma, she's from Cuba. I mean, she was from Cuba, she's dead now, but I grew up with her until the age, I think she died when I was 16 or 17. She did not speak that much English. So I was around people that were white, that were brown or black. I was around people that did not speak English. I was around people from all different classes of society. I feel like I had a very broad view about people, and I never, or my family, especially my mother, never put emphasis on skin color. She never really addressed it with me. She never really talked about it with me. I feel like she was trying to help or protect me from the bad things in the world. And I think racial identity, which it's not the whole racial identity idea, it's the core of racial identity, which leads to racism, prejudice, and bias. She wanted to protect me from that. On one end, I'm very happy that she did that, but in the other, like, side of the coin, I feel like it really hindered me in dealing with what was coming, let's say, in school. And I feel like all of my issues that I have with racial identity in the United States stem from school. I mean, family and environment do have a humongous impact on it as well, but I feel like you spend a lot more time in school with your friends, and that really molds you into the person you are. So the first instance where I learned that there was a very distinct difference between black and white people was when I told a boy, I think I've told this story many times before, and he happened to be white, that I liked him. I think I was like 4 to 8 years old. When you're young, it's not like you want to kiss the person or anything, but you like them, you want to be friends with them. And I told him that, and he was excited, but he went to go tell his parents, and he came back the next day, and he told me, oh, I like you too, but my parents told me I can't like an N word. For me, I did not know what this word meant. So I went to my mom, went to my grandma, and I asked them what this word meant. And I think they were heartbroken in the sense that they had to explain what it meant to me because they didn't really want to. They told me that there are some people and some instances in life that people might treat you. And he told me, oh, I like you too, but my parents told me I can't like an N word. For me, I did not know what this that could happen. It didn't really make any sense to me. I went to school. Elementary school, you know, was decent. That's when I met that kid, so that's when it all started, but I never really grasped this huge concept of racial identity and racism. It's when I got to like middle school. That's when it all started happening. And I don't know how to explain it the best or to the best of my abilities, but racial identity in the United States, we claim it to be a way to identify due to skin color, but we throw it as an ethnicity thing, I suppose, which honestly makes no sense when you think about it, but that's what we use it for. When I first started growing up, and I don't know if this was legal or not, but there were a lot of formulas or questionnaires where I had to bubble in what I chose, what I wanted to identify as, and it would always say pick one. And it only gave me the option of black, white, Spanish, or Hispanic, Asian, Native American, and whatever else, but no multiracial. So I would always have this complex or this issue with not being able to decide what I was or just put what I was. So I would always have to choose between black, white, and a lot of times neither of those groups accepted me and neither of those groups really wanted me. I was always too much of something for one of the groups. I was not African American because I was not dark enough, and then I was not white enough because I had kinky nappy hair. I never fit in, and I think as a kid the one thing and the only thing that you want is to fit in, and you don't want anyone to put a microscope or really zoomed in eye on you to pick what's wrong with you, so you try your best to just like hide behind the bushes. And I think as a mixed person, and I think a lot of mixed persons, people out there, persons, will say the same exact thing that I say. They are able to see issues between black versus white because they are never really in the middle of each of them. They're never really categorized with each of them. You're in the gray area, you're in this neutral area that not many people care about, but that goes, I guess, into a different video. I'm only trying to explicitly talk about racial identity. So then moving on to Germany. I moved to Germany, you guys, and I took all of these racial identity issues because it was an issue for me, and I just brought them with me to Germany. A lot of the things that I had, a lot of the problems that I had prior to coming to Germany, I really brought them with the idea that the same issues that I had in the United States would happen in Germany. And to give you guys a story that I think puts it into perspective, when I went to the KVR for the first time, I remember the man asked me where I was from or woher kommst du, and I was like, ich bin schwarz und weiß. Meine Mama ist weiß, mein Papa ist schwarz. And this man's eyes when I told him this were like,
what?
How weird is this girl? What the hell is she talking about? And he's like, so du kommst aus Africa? Because I don't think he got the correlation, or he didn't understand the question or the concept of me saying the skin color of my parents had to do with how I identified. His question or his answer might have been a little ignorant, but it's funny looking back at it, and I don't think he meant any harm. So he took my passport, I came back 2 weeks later, got my passport, and inside, what did it say? Not black, not white, not mixed, not multiracial, not other. It said Amerikanisch, which basically means American, and that's what they identified me as. I think also the most emphasis besides American was me having to decide if I was Catholic or evangelical, and I also found that to be very strange that they put so much emphasis on it, but that's a different story for a different time. But nowhere in any of my government, any type of form that I had in Germany, did I have to choose anything that focused on the color of my skin, which in some ways made me more comfortable with who I was, because I never felt like I had to keep fighting to tell people who I was or what I identified as. It was never a talking point. It was never a question that, and I'm only speaking from like a government, going to TÜV, going to the KVR, going to the Arbeitsamt, whatever amt or place I've been to, I never was or had to address my racial identity. I really honestly didn't refer to myself as being mixed for a very long time. I did not really refer to my mother being black or my father being white, or my mother being black, my mother being white, my father being black for a very long time. Then when I came back to the United States, and I think it was especially this time, this last year in 2019 and 2020, it really hit me how much of an issue racial identity is. It really made me open my eyes to the problems that this causes in our society. Moving forward on how my views have technically changed or why they have changed, I used to feel so empowered and so important to tell or say that I was mixed. I think growing up it was very hard, but later on I found comfort in saying that I was a mixed person, because that's what I identified as. And when I got to Germany, my comfort was taken away. I had to also be a woman, also be an American, but I also had to focus, I guess, more on myself, like internally, my personality, my attitude, characteristics, content of my heart, and something that was very superficial like the color of my skin. And I think it's a very interesting topic when you place individualism and selfishness and narcissism. That's what the United States is at the end of the day. I know a lot of people that will offend a bunch of people too, but when you look at it, we are only basing identity on something very superficial. So for me, I started realizing that I didn't want to be identified or addressed by those things because it held no weight to who I was. It really had nothing to do with who I was as a person internally. I put a little bit more effort into learning about racial identity because I'm like, why is it so important? Or why do people want to keep this around? Or why do people feel so comfortable with picking skin color as, you know, what they are and who they are? And I think that in the United States we have become so complacent and so comfortable with just how we are. And if you were to eliminate racial identity, we've been doing it for so long. And so many people, like I said, like myself, feel comfortable with putting emphasis on racial identity. So I think when you remove it, it's going to put a lot of people at an awkward stage in their life. And so when you focus on something superficial, something that's external, you really don't have to you really don't have to talk about yourself or the issues that you have inside. With all that being said, at the end of the day, I hope Americans get it together when trying to separate themselves. You're only dividing your nation. You know, it's okay to, let's say, be a woman or a man and be strong in that choice. It's okay to be black or white and be strong in that choice. But when you only base, you know, your life around those things, you're only creating a country that is completely divided, which is so horrible because you will never be progressive, you will never move forward, you will never be strong. And at the end of the day, you'll just be a very poor nation with piss poor morals, ethics, and a society. So yeah, done with my rant, done with everything that I have to say. Mean Haley, as always. I think right now it's just the worst time regarding racial issues, identity, and tensions, and I just realize how toxic it is right now. And I don't like it, especially when I try so hard to eliminate that part of me and move forward and try to progress, and when you're stuck in a place that constantly pushes this narrative. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up or thumbs down. Don't really care. Other than that, have a wonderful day and bye.
Yo guys, what's up? Scammer Revolt here, and before this video starts, I'd like to thank Joe Scambait for giving me this number during the live stream. Yeah, this number was gold mine. His link will be below in the